Hey y'all. Today I'm going to try to read 3 chapters because I was doing the timeline of when we're going to be done with school, and our last day I believe is May 8th. And if I just do 2 chapters a day, we're not going to be able to get through. So I'm going to start doing 3 chapters a day. Today we'll do chapters 15, 16, and 17. If you'll remember last time, we were at the point where Moon was in the boys' home. We were learning how he was getting along with the other kids. He seems like a pretty confident kid. He's not intimidated by people. The struggle right now is between him and Hal. Hal obviously has some kind of a history at that place of being a bully because Mr. Carter doesn't take his side when Hal and Moon got into their little fights. And now, right at the end of chapter 14, Hal and Moon got into another one. Remember, Hal came out to the play yard and came at Moon, and Moon was ready and hurt him. And that was the very end. Moon was just like, well, I hit him like my daddy told me to. So that's where we are. All right, chapter 15. We went to the rec room after supper, and Kit showed me how to play ping pong. It wasn't very good. I wasn't very good. He said I hit the ball too hard, but I didn't care. Something inside me made me feel like things were wrong. I was worried that I hadn't escaped yet. I felt so pinned up that my skin was beginning to itch. I can't play anymore, Kit. How come? I don't feel good. I'm going to go in the bunk room and lie down and look out the window. You want me to come with you? You don't have to. I'm coming with you. Now think about why he would feel so pinned up. Remember where he lived, right? Out there in the open. And now he's being kept inside. He's not used to being inside, so he wants to go out, at least to look out. Kit followed me down the hall. It was dark outside, and I could hear the wind picking up in the trees. When we got to the bunk room, we heard tapping on the window. It was Hal. When he saw that it was us, he frowned and walked back out into the play yard. I looked at his bunk and noticed that his blanket and pillow were still on it. I thought of what Pap would tell me if I were out there. Boy, you'll catch pneumonia out in this cold. Go back and get something to keep you warm. We laid on our sides on Kit's bottom bunk with our heads at opposite ends. I put my hand through my hair again while Kit watched me. Remember what happened to his hair earlier that day? How he got his hair cut? I bet it was fun out there in the forest with your father, he said. I nodded. You could do anything you wanted, he said. You don't need anybody telling you what to do, I replied. No government, nothing. And just you and your father all the time. That's right. I wish I had a father. I gazed out the window where Hal had been earlier. I wish I was busted out of here, I said. I've never had any friends like you. I don't know how long I can take this place. You know, I wasn't one of the ones making fun of you yesterday. I looked at Kit. I know. Most everybody wants to talk to me now because they know I'm your friend. They're scared of you. Well, I'm not going to whip up on anybody as long as they don't try and make me do things I don't want to do. That's good. You know, I said, Pap told me I could talk to him by writing letters and burning them. He said you can talk to dead people that way. Did you ever do it? A couple of times. I wish I had some stuff to write with and a fire right now. They won't let us have fires here. I know. I could start one up quick if we could. I like Mr. Carter, though, and he told me not to. I gazed out the window again. What are you looking at? Kit asked me after a while. Nothing. What's it like in the forest right now? It's windy at the tops of the pines, but not enough for it to get down to the forest floor. You know what that means, forest floor? Like the bottom, like where you would be, like the ground. There's a few clouds overhead, but not enough to cover up the moon. There's a slice of moon out tonight. What kinds of animals are out when it gets dark? Not too long ago, the coons came down out of the oak and hickory trees and started walking around finding stuff to eat. They like bugs and frogs and bird eggs. There's deer walking around, owls calling, turkeys sitting up in the treetops like big black nests. You can smell the dirt. You can smell dirt? I nodded. You can smell everything out there, especially at night when the air gets still. Just about the only things sleeping are small birds and people. Squirrels. Most things in the forest like the nighttime. Kit nodded. Hey, shut that door. Butch opened it. Thank you. Kit nodded. I was still staring out the window. He's going to be cold, I said. He doesn't have his blanket. Who? Hal. Well, he's got his jacket on. I didn't reply, but got up and went over and got Hal's bedding and started for the door. Where are you going? Take him his stuff. No, he'll kill you. There's not anybody around to help you right now. I'm not scared of him. Don't go out there, Moon. I'll be okay. I opened the door and stepped outside. A cold wind came across the play yard and into my face, and I saw Hal huddled against one of the school trailers. I walked toward him, and he took his hands from his pockets and crossed his arms tightly. What the heck are you doing? He said. I'm trading with you. You're trading? What? I'm going to sleep out here tonight. You can pretend to be me and use my bed. This is your stuff. Pretend to be you? Yeah, pull my covers up over you and pretend to be asleep when Mr. Carter comes in for lights out. Are you crazy? No, I just don't feel good. Hal took a step toward me and jammed his hands down in his pockets. Why are you doing this? It's nothing to me to sleep on the ground. I'd rather be outside than in there. I think it'll make me feel better. Hal shrugged his shoulders. If you say so. If Mr. Carter catches us, he's going to kick my butt. Maybe yours too. Scrunch up good under those covers. Yeah, all right. Hal bowed his shoulders in and ran towards the door like this, and ran towards the door with his hands still in his pockets. I looked around in the play yard until I saw a big oak tree. I walked over to it and set my bed up on the downwind side. Even covered up completely, I still heard the wind and the night rolling over me. I felt my worries ease, and I laid there in the darkness and imagined that I was someplace else. So 2 things happened there. Think about it. What did he do with Hal? I almost called him Kit. What did he do with Hal? You see how he changed that relationship a little bit? Also, how did he help himself? By going outside, he feels almost like he's back in the forest. So he helped himself by helping Hal too. I woke up before daybreak when the first birds made scattered calls. I laid under the blanket for a few seconds, remembering where I was. Eventually, it came to me, and worry flooded me again. I peered out and watched my breath stream before me in the chilled morning. The wind had settled, and the ground was covered with frost. The windows of the boys' home were dark, and the only sound was the humming of street lights. I stood and wrapped the blanket around my shoulders and studied the play yard. I looked at the tall utility fence with barbed wire on top and then inspected each of the trees. Now, you probably know what he's doing by looking around, right? Because he's got that goal in mind of escaping, right? So he's looking, seeing if he can find another clue. None of them, he's looking at the trees, none of them were close enough to the fence to allow anyone to jump up and over. I knelt and dug at the bottom of the fence with my hand until my fingers scraped cement. So that means he can't dig under, right? There was no way under. I stood again and walked over to the school trailers. They were set almost 10 feet away from the fence. There was no way to leap from the roof, but I'd not studied them long before I knew they were the second piece of my escape plan. So the second thing that he can do to help himself escape is got something to do with the trailers. Remember, the first is the kitchen. In the back of the kitchen, that door opens, no alarm goes off, and it's not locked. Second, the trailers. So keep that in mind. I slipped into the bunk room just as the people started to stir in their beds. Radiators hissed and warmed the room from each side. Those are like heaters. And everyone was wrapped tightly in their blankets. I went to my bunk and touched Hal's shoulder. He opened his eyes and looked at me. "You better get outside," I said. "Mr. Gene's going to be here soon." Hal rubbed his eyes and didn't seem to hear me. Suddenly, he sat up, threw off his blanket. "Crap," he said, and he hurried outside. During breakfast, Kit told me that some of the other boys had been talking about me making president. President of what? Of Pinson. What does the Pinson president do? Well, he just acts like the president. What do presidents act like? Like the boss of everybody. Well, who's president now? Hal. Does he know about me getting his job? No. I looked over at Hal. He stared at me, but it wasn't a mean stare. He watched me curiously. "He's looking at me right now," I said. "I think he might know something's up about this president stuff." "No way he knows. Everybody except you is scared of Hal." "Well, I don't want to be president. I'm not going to be here long enough to be president." "When are you leaving?" "Tonight." "Tonight?" "That's right. I'm busting out of here. I can't take being pinned up much longer. I think it's making me sick." "Can I still come?" "Yeah. I don't think I can do without you anymore. Without you anyway." "Me?" "Yeah. You're the one that's going to let us out of here." Now, who was going to let them out of there? Little bitty Kit. Remember, Kit's smaller. He's sickly. He takes medicine all the time. And Kit, who's never really had a friend, Kit now is going with Moon to escape. And he's one of the main parts of the escape plan. All right, now we're on chapter 16. During our lunch break, Kit followed me to the corner of the play yard where Hal stood with some other boys. I saw them stop what they were doing and watch us. "Hey," I said. Hal looked around at the others and then back at me. "Come over here with me and Kit," I said. "I got something to tell you." Hal rubbed his palms on his uniform nervously. "You know I ain't mad at you anymore," he said. "I know. I forgot all about that. We got other stuff to talk about." Hal glanced at his friends and nobody said anything. "All right," he said. I led the two of them to a spot in the play yard where no one would hear us talking. "You want to help us bust out of here?" "What?" "I'm busting out. I need your help." "How in the heck are you going to bust out of here?" "Kit's going to let us out. I got it all figured out." Hal pointed to Kit. "He's going." "What's wrong with Kit?" "He's got to have medicine for one. He can't do anything without getting sick." "You worry about yourself, Hal," Kit said. "You don't know about me." "Whatever," Hal said. "Nobody's ever gotten out of Pinson anyway. You can't get out of here, Moon." "I can get out of most anywhere." Hal studied me for a second, and he shrugged his shoulders. "Well, sure," he said. "If you think you can do it, I'll help you. I want to come with you, though." I told Kit I don't care who comes with me. "What do you want me to do?" "You're going to drive." "Drive?" "Yeah, you know how to drive?" "I used to drive my daddy's truck a little, just around the clay pit." "Driving's driving, right?" "I guess," Hal said. "As long as you can see over the steering wheel, we can figure out the rest." "I think I can do it." "Good, because they'll catch us for sure if we start running from right outside that fence." I could tell that Hal was getting excited. His face twitched and his hands jittered against his sides. "When do we go?" he asked. "Tonight, after Mr. Carter leaves and Mr. Gene's asleep in the house. I'll wake you up." I climbed out of my bunk a couple of hours after lights out. I passed by Kit and Hal, and both their eyes were wide open and watching me. "I'll be back," I whispered. "Wait here." I slipped out of the bunk room and down the hall into the rec room. Then I crawled under the ping pong table and used a penny I'd found in the play yard to unscrew a flat metal fastener that held the two halves of the table together. Now, you need to picture this. And I don't know this for sure, but what I picture in my mind, the fastener, it holds the ping pong table. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but they fold up, right? It'll lay flat like this, and then it'll fold up so that you can put it in the corner of the room if you don't need it. Well, in order for it not to collapse when it's flat like this, there's these pieces of metal that are under the table on either side, and it may be, I'd say, about that big, but it's a piece of metal, okay? That's what he's using a penny to unscrew, that piece of metal. Let's see. Yeah. I went back out into the hall with the fastener, and I crouched against the wall opposite the entrance of the rec room. From there, I could hear the opening and closing of the front door. I sat still till I heard Mr. Carter leave at midnight. When I returned to the bunk room, Hal and Kit were still watching me. "He's gone," I said. "Get dressed." The two of them got out of their beds quietly. Then all three of us put on our uniforms and jackets. "I still don't see how you gonna do this," Hal whispered. "Come outside," I said. "We can talk where nobody hears us." I pushed the door to the play yard open, and we stepped out into the night. I showed him the fastener. "You see this? Hal, you lift me and Kit up on the roof of one of those school trailers. I'm going to unscrew a piece of that sheet tin with this ping pong piece for a screwdriver. I figured that roof's about 12 feet wide, and that trailer's about 10 feet from that fence. Once I get that piece of tin off, we can lay it from the roof of the trailer to the top of that fence. Somebody light, like Kit, can slide right down on it and out of Pinson." Hal thought about it. "What's going to happen when he falls off of the other side of that slide? He's going to break his leg." I looked at Kit. "Kit, do you know how to make a monkey landing?" Kit shook his head. "It's like this," I said. I jumped up and I landed with most of my weight on my knees, and I bent them slowly and then rolled across the ground. You got to take that fall like that. Just sink to the ground when you land and roll over. I don't know if I can do that. You can do it. After you get over there, you're going to go around to the supply room door next to the kitchen where you get your hair cut. When I was in there, I saw that you can get in from the outside without a key. They come in there to drop off food boxes. Once you get in, though, you got to prop the door open so it won't lock behind you. Then there's got to be somebody to open the kitchen door from the inside. We'll be in there waiting on you." "How are you going to get through the kitchen to that supply room door?" Hal asked. "Miss Broomstead locks it every night and takes the key home with her." "I got that all figured out, Hal. You don't worry." "You better have. You got it figured what car we're going to drive out of here?" "No, I don't know that yet. Whichever one's got a key in it. Are y'all ready?" "I'm ready, Moon," Kit said. Hal frowned and he shook his head. "I guess. Jeez." Kit and I stood on Hal's shoulders to get onto the roof, where I started unscrewing a piece of sheet tin. I went slow so I wouldn't make any noise and wake up Mr. Gene. Remember, Mr. Gene's house is basically attached to Pinson, right? So if they made too much noise, he's going to hear it. And it's tin. It's tin. You know, the sound that would make. If you bang it, it's loud. So they've got to be really quiet. I went slow so I wouldn't make any noise and wake up Mr. Gene. We could see every window of his kitchen from where we were, and the street light had us lit up like we were on a stage. I told Kit to keep a lookout for anything unusual going on in Mr. Gene's house. It seemed that I took out nearly 50 screws and passed 30 minutes before I could lift the sheet tin. When I looked down, Hal was sitting against the trailer sleeping. "Hal," I said. He jerked awake and rubbed his eyes. "Get ready. Go stand under this slide and I'm about to make in case Kit falls." "This better work. I'm tired." "Hurry up," I said. Hal stood up and walked around to the other side of the trailer near the fence. "Are you ready, Kit?" "I think so." I lifted the tin and walked to the edge of the trailer. My plan was to stand it straight up in the air and then let it slowly fall down to the top of the fence. But when I had it up, a breeze came by and it blew it against it. I almost slid off the roof trying to hold it. "Kit, come help me. I'm about to fall off here." Kit jumped up and grabbed one side of the tin. The breeze came again and blew against it. We held on the best we could, but we weren't strong enough. The tin slipped from our fingers and slammed down against the top of the fence. A prickly feeling shot up my back as I heard the sound travel across the yard. I saw Hal dive to the ground and lie still. "Get down," I told Kit. "Lay as flat as you can on the roof." Kit and I flattened ourselves against the roof and watched Mr. Jean's house. Not a second later, his kitchen light came on and his face pressed against the glass. I knew he couldn't see the tin lying over the fence from where he was, but he could see us on the roof of the trailer if we weren't low enough. "What are we going to do?" Kit whispered. "Shh, suck in your stomach." "Is there anybody coming?" Hal asked. "Shh." We watched Mr. Jean's face. It was staring directly at us. Kit was breathing loudly and his feet were shaking. It seemed like 10 minutes passed before Mr. Jean stepped away from the window and turned off his kitchen light. We lay there quietly for several minutes until Hal called to us from below. "Did anybody see you?" "No," I said. "Mr. Jean looked out his window, but he didn't see us." "Mr. Jean!" "Shh! He might not be asleep again." "I'm getting out of here." "We need you, Hal. He'll be back in bed by now. Kit, go ahead and start out there." Kit was still shaking from our close call. He nodded at me and began to crawl out onto the sheet tin. I knelt on the ends so that it wouldn't slip. Sliding forward on his knees, Kit made his way to where the metal hung over the outside of the Pinson fence. When he stared down at the ground at the other end, he looked back at me. "That's good," I whispered. "Now, remember what I said about the monkey landing?" Kit nodded and looked back at the ground. I thought he might hesitate, but he got up to the edge and jumped off. He hit the ground almost like I showed him and rolled across on the grass. I held my breath hoping that he wasn't hurt until he stood up, brushed off his pants legs, and he turned around and smiled. "Like that?" I looked down at Hal. "I told you we'd bust out of here." Hal smiled at me nervously. "Let's just hope you're right about that kitchen door. If you can't get it open, we ain't going to be able to get him out of here." I jumped down from the roof, and we ran across the play yard and slipped back into the bunk room. "What are y'all doing?" I heard a kid named Eddie say from behind his bed. "Go to sleep, Eddie," Hal snapped. "I got to get something," I said. "Wait here." I hurried to the bathroom, stood on a chair, and carefully pulled a shower rod loose. After stripping it of the curtain, I tucked it under my arm and returned to Hal. "Y'all are going to get us in trouble," Eddie said. "Eddie, if you don't want me to beat the crap out of you," Hal said, "then shut your little baby mouth." We continued into the dining hall, where I stopped in front of the kitchen door. "Watch this," I said. Now remember, he's got a shower rod. You know, like your curtain rod in your shower. So he's got a rod. I took the shower rod. I stuck it through the slot in the wire mesh where the dishes were returned. By working it sideways, I was able to press against the deadbolt latch. And in a second, the cage door popped loose and swung open. "I ain't believing this," Hal said. "All them nights I was hungry." "Come on," I said. By the time we made it to the back of the kitchen, we heard Kit tapping on the inside door of the supply room. I unlocked and opened it, and he stood there grinning. "I can't believe it," Hal said. "We're just going to walk out of here." I motioned through the open door with my hand. "Go find something you can drive." Hal went outside and disappeared into the parking lot around the corner. I turned to Kit. "Are you sure you want to go?" Kit nodded his head. "Why are you so quiet?" I'm just a little scared is all." "About what?" "About getting caught," he said. "Shoot, we'll get out again if they catch us. What about your medicine?" "I don't need it." "Are you sure?" Kit hesitated for a second, and then he said, "I'm sure. I don't need it anymore." "We won't need anything anymore, Kit. We can make everything we need. And we'll go to Alaska." "Yep, and we'll go to Alaska, where there's all kinds of people that live in the forest and don't need the government." Kit began to knead his hands together with excitement. This is kneading your hands. With dough, when people make bread, they knead the dough. It's like you turn and twist it. That's kneading your hands. Kit began to knead his hands together with excitement. "Tell me what kinds of things we'll eat, Moon." "Anything we want. Deer, rabbit, coon, turkey, acorns, pine needle tea, huckleberries, thistle, cattails, poke salad. There's everything you could want out there." "That's what I want. I want to get my own food out of the forest." "We'll hide for a while, and I'll teach y'all some things about living out. Once everybody stopped looking for us and we got plenty of supplies, we can start for Alaska and find some more people that hate the government." "Yeah," Kit said. Both of us thought about all of that while we waited on Hal. "I gotta get a gun, too," I said. "Maybe we can find the way to my shelter and get Pap's rifle. You know anything about the roads around here?" Kit shook his head. "Well, Hal probably does," I said. Suddenly, we heard something that sounded like a big truck coming around the corner. Kit and I looked at each other. "What did he get that makes such a loud noise?" I said. Kit's eyes grew wide. "I don't know." Hal pulled up to the door and stopped. "Hey, Moon," came his voice. I looked out and saw Hal standing in front of a bus. "Why did you get that?" Hal shrugged. "It's the only thing that had keys in it. I found them under the seat." "Mr. Jean's gonna be mad now," Kit said. "He loves his school bus." "Well, how many does it hold?" "It's got about 12 seats in it," Hal said. "It'll hold everybody with 2 people in a seat." "All right, I'll go see who all wants to go. Whoever wants out of here might as well come now." "What?" Hal said. "After all this, you gonna go and get us busted?" "I won't get us busted." "Shoot," Hal said. He shook his head and he spit. "Suit yourself. I think you're crazy." I started back towards the bunk room with Kit following me. "Moon, I don't think we should get everybody up. I think we should just go ahead and leave while we can." "But it doesn't seem fair," I said. "I bet everybody in here is about to go crazy thinking about getting out." I flipped on the light in the bunk room. "Everybody stay quiet," I said. "We're busting out of here. Anybody that's coming, we got a bus outside the kitchen." So that's the end of the next chapter. Now we're on the last chapter. So now we got to see, are all his boys going to come with him? If they do, is that going to help his plan? Is that going to mess up his plan? Hal and Kit definitely don't want the boys to come, but we'll see. All the other 19 boys at Pinson got on that bus with their blankets and pillows. "Should we get any of this food, Moon?" "No, it'll be too much to carry, and we'll already have everything we need in the forest." 15 minutes after we pulled away from the boys' home, a sign said we were driving south on Highway 69. Hal sat straight in the driver's seat and squeezed the steering wheel. I stood beside him looking out the windshield and hoping that I'd see Mr. Apriscotto's store. I didn't know the name of the highway that went from Tuscaloosa to Gainesville, and neither did Hal. All I knew was that it was somewhere between us and Livingston. I figured the police would find us if we tried to stay near the shelter, but I wanted to get Pap's rifle and the rest of the bullets before we found a place to live. Kit sat behind me. while the other boys jumped in the seats and yelled and fought with their pillows. "Where are we going?" Eddie yelled. "To the forest," I said. "What are we going to do?" "Well, we're going to live out there, catch our own food, and stay away from the government." Everybody cheered, and I smiled back at them. "We're going to make our own clothes out of animal skins and swing on vine swings." Some of the younger boys began to bounce on the seats again. "We're not ever going to school, and we can stay up as late as we want. We're going to shoot guns and make traps and swim in creeks and catch animals for pets. I know how to do it all." "Can we throw away our uniforms?" "You don't even have to wear anything. Everybody can be naked if they want to." "We're going to make Moon president," somebody yelled. I held my hands up into the air. And we'll whip up on anybody that tries to catch us and tell us what to do." All of the boys cheered and shook their seats. I was so excited that my hands trembled. Kit was standing on the seat and yelling and jumping along with everybody else. Hal was still quiet with his eyes locked on the road. "Are you doing okay, Hal?" Hal nodded. "Yeah, but I ain't seeing no signs for Gainesville. We're about to come to some place called Moundville." "I don't want to be president," I said. "You're still president." Hal didn't answer me. He was concentrating too hard on the highway to care about what I said. "Can't you get them to shut up and stop rocking the bus?" Hal said. "They're going crazy back there." "Geez," Hal said. "Johnny, get them to shut up," he yelled back to one of the older boys. "What's after Moundville?" I asked him. "I saw a sign that said Talladega National Forest. I think it's next." "Let's just go there then. That sounds like a good place." "But what about the rifle?" "We can make it without a gun for a while. I can rig just about any kind of trap there is. Weapons, too." Hal nodded. "Whatever. You better know what you're talking about. I'm sure as heck gonna be mad about starving out in the forest with a bunch of crybabies." The headlights of an approaching car came into view, and Hal straightened up and gripped the wheel tightly. The car whooshed by, and Hal sank back into his seat. I reached into my pocket and pulled out that fastener I'd taken from the ping-pong table. "Open that door, Hal. I'm going to make a knife for us." Hal looked over at me and quickly back at the road ahead. "What are you doing now?" "I can sharpen it on the road. Now think about how the bus door opens in your bus. And he's got this little thin piece of metal, right? And he's going to try to put it on the road. He's going to get down low, right, and put it on the road so that will sharpen it. That's scary. I can sharpen it on the road." Hal shrugged and pulled the handle that opened the folding doors. "If you fall out, it ain't my fault," he said. I went down to the steps and laid on the landing where the road rushed by my face. I looked up. I saw Kit watching me nervously. "I'm going to need a knife, Kit," I reassured him. "Might have been easier taking one from the kitchen," Hal said. "We can make this work." "His butt's going to fall out, Kit." "No, it's not," Kit said. I took a piece of metal and held it onto the road. Orange sparks flew as I sharpened the edges and the tip. In about 5 minutes, I had a knife that would do to skin an animal. I came back up the steps with my new knife and showed it to Kit. "Here," I said. "You hold on to this. We'll need it later." Kit took the knife like he'd never held one before. He felt the newly sharpened edges and studied it. I turned back to watch the road with Hal. After an hour passed, the bus grew quiet. Some of the boys had gone to sleep in their seats, and others had spread their blankets and pillows on the floor and slept there. I helped Hal watch for signs that told us where Talladega National Forest was. Sometimes I'd look over at Kit, and then he'd straighten up and smile at me like he wasn't tired. Eventually, we passed a sign that told us we were entering the National Forest area. "Where you want to go from here?" Hal asked. "Any road that goes into the forest is fine with me," I said. Before long, we came to a sign for Payne Lake that pointed up a paved road to our left. Hal glanced at me, and I told him to take it. I turned around to announce that we were almost there, but everyone was still asleep. I looked down at Kit. He was rubbing his eyes. "Don't go to sleep, Kit." He sat up in his seat and looked out the window. Headed to a lake, I said. We're going to set out from there. Kit nodded, covered his mouth, and yawned. We drove about a quarter of a mile until we came to a chain across the road. Hanging from the chain was a sign that said, "This road is closed after dark." Hal stopped the bus. "What now?" "We'll have to walk the rest of the way." "I'm tired," Hal said. You can't be tired. We got food to trap and a shelter to build. We hadn't even found a good place to live yet. I turned to Kit. "You're not tired, are you, Kit?" Kit shook his head. "Kit's not tired." I faced the back of the bus. "Hey, everybody," I yelled. "We're here. It's all the force you can get everywhere around us. Come on." Some of the boys moved about on the floor and sat up in their seats. One of the 8-year-olds began to cry. "I'm cold," he whimpered. "I want to go back," another boy said. "I don't want to bust out anymore." "Yeah, Hal," one of the older boys said. "Mr. Carter's going to be all over us for this." "But we can live in the forest without the government and get our own food and build our own shelter with nobody to tell us what to do," I said. Another boy began to cry, and someone from the back said he was scared. I held up my hands. "I thought everybody wanted to go." "Johnny's right," another boy, one of the older boys said. "We'll get in too much trouble. I'll whip up on anybody that tries to catch us." "Let them stay if they want," Hal said. "I don't want to listen to them." I looked at Hal, then back at the others. "All right. Anybody that wants to go back can stay here on the bus. The law will probably come for you when it gets daylight in a couple of hours. Anybody that wants to go with me and Kit and Hal can come, but you can't cry. Hal doesn't like crybabies. We got to get going. We got to get going because we don't have much time." I grabbed my blanket, opened the door to the bus, and walked onto the road. When I turned around, Hal and Kit had their blankets and pillows and were following behind me. "You better leave those pillows," I said. "They're just going to get hung up in the briars." "What are we going to use?" "Well, we can use our jackets or marsh grass." Hal frowned doubtfully and threw his pillow back into the bus. Kit put his back too. "Let's go," I said. "You sure we're going to find some food before long?" Hal asked. I nodded. "We got some hiking to do first, but I'll find something for us right after daylight." I turned to Kit. "Are you okay?" Kit nodded. "I don't know what's wrong with everybody," I said. "I thought they were ready to go with us." "I sure don't have anything to lose," Hal said. "They gonna send me to Helen Wheeler soon anyway." "Helen Wheeler's not good," Kit said. "They tell stories about that place." "Well, y'all don't have to worry about Helen Wheeler or Pinson or any of those places anymore. Come on." All right, that's the end of that chapter. So, here's what you got to be thinking. Good 4th grade readers, which I've said this before, but good 4th grade readers should be able to predict, right? It was kind of hard picturing all that, but you should have been able to picture that in your mind, like the escape. Now they're in the forest, right? So you should be making a movie of this in your head. Now, those three, Hal, Kit, and Moon, are setting out to go in the forest. Also, the other boys are there. Now, Moon told them, when it gets to be daybreak, the law's going to find you. You got to think, they're in that bus. Now, I don't know if it's yellow. That's what I picture in my head, but I don't know if it's yellow. But they know that they left, right? So the law's going to be looking for them because all the boys in that home are gone. And they're going to be able to find that bus pretty easily because of how big and, I'm assuming, how bright it is. So he's like, the law's going to be there. So they've got to get distance between where that bus is and themselves, or else the law's going to be able to go and catch them quickly. So that's why Moon's like, we can't sleep. We can't worry about food. We got to get going, right? They've been up all day. Now it's, I'd say, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So you got to think about what's going to happen while they're in the forest, okay? All right. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh, wait. One more thing. Let me show you guys this. Let me see if I can get it. Now that you guys have y'all know. I'm going to try to show you guys a picture of the, dang, it doesn't show them. I'll show you guys tomorrow. I was going to show you guys a picture of the cover. It's got Moon, Kit, and Hal on the cover. I'll have to show you later. You can probably Google it, though. Just Google Alabama Moon, and you can see the cover of the book. That way you can see, and you can probably picture which one's Moon, which one's Hal, which one's Kit. But we'll see. I'll try to show y'all tomorrow. Bye.